All right, guys, super excited to be joined by this next guest. He is one of the best coaches in the game, a coach of champions, in fact, with fighters such as Franics Ngannou, Sean Strickland, and countless others. He does an amazing job at Extreme Couture. The one and only Eric Nicksick joins us on Submission Radio. And Eric, let's get straight into it because we're just on the cusp of a massive main event at UFC 305. Dricus du Plessis beating Israel in a fight where both guys look great. It kind of reminded me of an old boxing match where it was just an all-time classic. What was your initial reaction when you saw what happened at UFC 305 in Perth?
I could agree with you more. I was just sitting there as a fan, like just watching back and forth, like not even like really like putting your coaching hat on or trying to break down the fight. I was just a fan. And I personally had I thought Izzy was winning. I had him up, and then, you looked at the scorecards. Two guys had Dricus up 2-1. One had Izzy up 2-1. So I think we were all correct in what we were seeing. And then, I'm texting with a few guys. Brad Tavares was like, man, it's crazy. Like, Izzy looks tired. But Izzy didn't look tired in between the rounds. Like, when he was in between rounds, he looked great. Dricus was the one that looked tired. And then Dricus would have, this, adrenal dump, and he looked like he's about to be finished or quit, and then he would come back, so it was just back and forth battle, man. And I think the fans won, more than anybody. So it was an exciting fight, and hopefully we get that rematch.
What did you think of this version of Israel Adesanya? Obviously, you guys just fought him in Sydney, but man, he looked sharp out there physically, looked almost like a different fighter. What did you think of what you saw from him in that?
Yeah, right away I saw massive improvements, I think, as far as not allowing himself to be pushed backwards and then rely on kind of that pull counters where his back stays on the cage and you're able to kind of cut him off and keep him backed up. He was using a lot of forward pressure. And then when he was backing up, he was backing up off of angles and then switching and sliding his stances off of those angles. So I thought he looked really good. And, I don't know if there were some wrestling exchanges that got him tired, but from my perspective, I thought he looked sharp, man. I love the adjustment and digging to the body. He did a good job, and that was something we talked about in the pre-fight for these two, where I feel like Sean didn't utilize his teeps as much as he should have. That I would like to see Izzy utilize more teeps and front kicks to negate some of that forward pressure by Dricus, and Izzy did that, and that was working really well. So, all in all, I don't think it was like oh man, Izzy looked like trash, he should retire. I thought he was winning up to that point, so I thought he looked good.
Okay, so Dricus du Plessis, man, he might be one of the most interesting puzzles in MMA. I mean, that's the thing, like Sean is too, right? Like, super hard to figure out these guys. But I got to find out from you, like, when you're watching Izzy land these shots and, like, Dricus is trying to hit him and Izzy's not anywhere near to be hit. But he just doesn't stop, right? Like, if the first attack doesn't work, then he goes to the second thing. And if the second thing doesn't work, he just doesn't let up. And the crazy thing about this is, because we were cage side for this one, and we've got a chance to see it for the first time, is the power. Like, even though he's thrown the same shot 100 times, it seems like it's still got the same amount of power every single time.
He's just so confident in his skill set. And, he looked tired. He looked like, he was about to quit. And then the dude's just so damn tough. And he keeps coming back and then keeps finding ways to persevere in those situations. And he's a champion. And I talked to him, a couple months ago. And I told him, I was like, hey, just remember, the hardest fight of your career is your first title defense. Anybody that has gotten the belt, Randy Couture is the one that always told me that. So I was like, just, the target's now on your back. So make sure that you're minding your P's and Q's. And he looked like that, man. And those types of fights, I'm glad that he got to have that tough fight, because it was very close, I think, going into that round. But man, that dude he's tough as the day is long. He got the job done. So credit to Dricus.
All right, man. And from your perspective, for you and Sean, who did you guys actually want to fight? Because it was going to be between Izzy and Dricus here. Are you happy it's Dricus, or were you hoping for another fight with Iz?
Oh, it didn't matter. Didn't care. We weren't like rooting for anybody in particular. For me as a competitor, we lost to Dricus, so we want to get that fight back, in my opinion. So yeah, I mean, it worked out one way or another. I thought if Izzy was going to win, right away, he was going to call it Sean because he wants to get that one back. But thankfully, Dana and the powers that be feel like Sean deserves that rematch. It was a very close fight, and I think there was some things that we could have done better. So I'm looking forward to competing against Dricus again.
Yeah, man. Well, that was a big point of contention. I know you commented on our interview with Eugene Behrman, where on Instagram, where Behrman said that he believes Robert Whittaker deserves the title shot over Sean Strickland, and then at the post-fight press conference, Dricus actually made a point of talking about the fact that he believes Robert Whittaker deserves the next title shot as well. So, what is your sort of response to people who are saying, "Hey, it should be Robin there if he beats Khamzat instead of Sean"?
I mean, they're just opinions. Everybody's got one, right? It is what it is. So I think Robert Whittaker is a guy who always is deserving of a title shot, especially when he's winning the fashion that he is winning. But when push comes to shove, if you're just comparing the two common opponents, Dricus finished Robert Whittaker, and he arguably won a very close split decision versus Sean Strickland, right? So I think the fans want to see that finished. I think Sean has earned that right. We went out and did our job versus Paulo Costa. He looked great in that fight. And, we're not going to sit around and why go fight Robert Whittaker or Khamzat or any of these other guys when we have the title fight waiting for us. So if that's the case, then, we'll fight beginning of the year, end of December, whatever they tell us.
Yeah, what did you make of Alex Pereira? As soon as Dricus won that fight, he put up a photo of himself, said, "I'm coming back down to middleweight." What was your reaction? It sounds like he was trying to kind of jump the queue a little bit. What was your reaction?
I mean, he's got a tough fight ahead of him. Khalil Rountree's no joke either. So, focus on that. That's October 5th. And if he decides to jump down, I'm sure he can call his shots. The UFC loves him, and he's doing his job. He's going out and winning fights. But, well, that's the one big dude. He's not going to be jumping down weight classes anytime soon. So, let Dricus move his ass up or something like that. But for Alex to be jumping down to 185 is it's a tough go.
I guess in a funny scenario, if Sean does win and Alex moves down for whatever reason, you guys would get another crack at him, right? And in a way, that's kind of the sweet silver lining there, getting another shot, even though Alex is a absolute beast, getting another crack at, potentially one of the best guys to do it as well.
Sure, that's a nightmare. That's a nightmare. I have to relive that all over again, So just stay up there at 205, man. Do your thing up there. We're good.
Yeah. Okay. Just quickly as well on Izzy's future, man. The guy's a champ. We spoke a little bit to his team after the fight. It was an impressive performance in my books. I still think he looked really good out there up until the time he got stopped. What do you think should be next for Israel, man? Like, do you envision him getting back in this title hunt and potentially still fighting you guys down the line?
Definitely. I think that, he just needs to go out and get a win. But I also think he's a guy that can jump in between divisions as well. We saw him go up and compete against Jan Blachowicz at 205 at one point. I think go and make fun fights for him. I don't think it necessarily needs to be chasing the title at 185, but go get some money fights and chase some fun fights, and see what you can do. And then I think there's some good fights at 85 for him as well. This Cannonier and Kyle fight this weekend's a big fight. If Kyle wins, that's fresh blood in the division. There's a lot of guys in the 185-pound division. You got Brendan Allen and Imanov fighting here soon as well. So there's some great matches I think that Izzy would fare in. And, I think he's got a lot of options, man. Everybody's going to tune in to see Izzy fight.
Hey, just on that Khamzat Rob fight, I mean, a lot of us have been speaking about, Rob winning because he's such a beast, obviously, but who do you think will actually win that fight? I mean, there could be a good chance that it'll be you guys defending the belt against Khamzat as well, right?
Yeah, definitely. It definitely could be. I'm 50-50 on that. Like, I've trained with Khamzat. I've been around him. I think the sky's the limit for that guy. He's unbelievable. But, the question marks are, what happens later on in those rounds. Can Robert Whittaker weather the storm in the early rounds and drag him into some deep waters? And then if that's the case, how's he going to look? How's Khamzat going to look? So you give him the benefit of the doubt, but those are the unknowns. So you like to see that. You like to see him get through some of that stuff. So to me, it's really a coin flip fight. I would lean a little bit towards Khamzat just because of his power and his athleticism. But how do you ever count out Robert Whittaker, man? That guy's a stud.
That's right, Eric. And you know what shouldn't be a coin flip? How smooth your balls are below. Enter our friends at Manscaped, who are guaranteeing you the smoothest balls in town. With a code word submission, you guys get 20% off now and free shipping today. But what about Father's Day? It's right around the corner here in Australia. Look no further than Manscaped and their collection of products. Meet the handyman, designed for the dad who can fix anything except his unruly facial hair. It's the ultimate compact shaver that's designed for the precision and convenience that your dad enjoys and deserves. What about the Weed Whacker 2.0? That's for the dads who are starting to show a little too much ear and nose hair. The Weed Whacker 2.0 nose and ear trimmer is a great gift with a powerful 7,000 RPM motor and a 360-degree rotary dual blade system. The Weed Whacker 2.0 helps tackle unwanted hair like a pro. So visit Manscaped today and get all of your presents for dad this Father's Day. That's code word submission, 20% off and free shipping now. But Eric, I wonder, speaking of the fight, I know the first one was super close. What kind of adjustments do you need to make in this one for Sean to win here?
Yeah, but I know Dricus watches this show, so.
It's Dricus and my mom.
yeah, my mom too. My mom watches as well.
Thank you, Mama Nicksick. You're the best.
Yes, there are some things, and you know, I've said them publicly before in the past, but there are definitely some things that we went away from that would have helped negate that forward pressure. And I still firmly believe, had we stayed on those things, you know, we would have won that fight. And he didn't do those things. Sean did not do those things. So we need to get back to some small little changes. There's some things on the ground that I think we can accomplish as well, that I would like to revisit with Sean. And yeah, I mean, it wasn't this crazy, oh dude, we got our ass kicked. There was just some small little things. But now the fun part is the chess match. You know, what are they going to go back and do and make those adjustments, and what are they going to expect us to make our adjustments on, right? And then like there's that little game of chess now. So that'll be the fun part.
How do you see this rematch playing out? Do you think it's going to be a back and forth battle that Sean's going to win? Or do you believe it might look drastically different now that you guys have been in there with Dricus for a whole 5 rounds?
You would love to say like, oh, we're going to go in there and smoke this dude. But Dricus, you know, he'll look awful, and then he comes back and does his thing. So you got to expect a knockdown, drag out fight, 2-2 going into round 5. Hey, we're down to the last 5 minutes. You know, we're gonna have to dig deep and figure out a way to get this fight. That's how we have to train. That's how we have to expect it. You know, it's gonna be to the death.
Dude, I gotta also ask you, like, obviously Dricus and his team, they're nice people. We got a chance to speak to his head coach, who's a very interesting guy as well. There's some great, man. It's always such an honor to like speak to you and Eugene Behrman and get a chance to kind of pick Dricus's coach's brain as well, because you guys are like geniuses in the game. But the lead up to this fight, right? Like Dricus has shown us he's actually quite clever when it comes to building to fights. He gets into people's heads. I just want to get your reaction. Like, obviously, some people thought maybe he strategically, you know, tried to get into Israel's head leading into this one with the press conference and the stuff that he was saying. And at the post-fight press conference, he's already mentioning stuff about, making Sean cry again and stuff like that. Like, what do you make of the sort of mental game, the warfare, I suppose, on Dricus's part in trying to get people against him to go emotional? And is it ever too far, like, for you and Sean when he says this kind of stuff? And I imagine he'll be really going at it a bit more during the fight week as you guys get into it.
I mean, I think if you're keeping it mellow and you're keeping it professional, I think Dricus will do the same. I mean, when Brad Tavares fought him, they were both very professional. But, you know, Sean and Izzy were both kind of coming at him in different directions and you know, making it a little bit more personal. So I think you kind of saw the venom come out of Dricus. And, you know, I've got to know Dricus on a personal level. I like the guy. I think he's a solid dude. I think his coach is a solid dude. You know, at the end of the day, we're all competing against one another, and that's what it's all about. But I love to be able to show respect and to our opponents. And I like to see what I saw after the fight with Izzy and Dricus. Even Izzy or Sean and Dricus, you know, that they shook hands. I thought they were cool afterwards. And so the sportsmanship behind it, but afterwards, I think is always important. And, you know, I put a tweet out there too, like, you know, Izzy's always shown so much class in a loss, right? I think a lot of athletes should take a look at like the way he carries himself and the way he handles himself after a defeat. And, you know, so I'm not all for the trash talk and and having to do that. But if you look at a guy who's doing well at it, it's certainly Dricus. I think he's getting guys' heads.
Yeah, you know what? We were talking about this with the media, and we're like, this guy might be the best trash talker in MMA, only because what he says, right? It's not predetermined,
No.
and he just subtly gets into people's heads as the fight week goes on. And man, you know, they say it's all fair in love and war, but for Sean and you guys, it's not personal with him anymore, right? Like it's kind of water under the bridge going into this one.
I mean, it could be personal to him. It's not to me. You know, it's never personal for the coach. You know what I mean? Like I leave myself out of any of this stuff. I'm not trying to, you know, hype the fight up. I'm not making any pay-per-view sales by hyping it up. I'm not talking trash. I don't get into any of that shit. You know, when you tell us we have this opponent, it's my job to go out and try to execute that opponent. That's it, through a game plan, right? So I keep myself out of it. As far as Sean and Dricus are concerned, if those guys want to go down that path again, that's up to them. I'd prefer not, but, you know, I'm just a quiet guy. I want to go out and do our business and be done.
Hey, just quickly before we move off it, did the UFC say anything about an Africa card? And I know Sean's already sort of been putting out some tweets about fighting in Africa. If it is Africa, what are we expecting here, man?
We won't even get in. I don't even know how we'd be allowed to even go. So I haven't heard anything of location or anything like that. We haven't heard one thing. So, you know, the dust hasn't really settled from 305 yet. And, you know, these guys are going to be licking their wounds after that war. So who knows? Dricus might not even fight until, you know, first quarter of next year. So nothing's been brought up to us at all.
Hey, just quickly also before we move off Dricus, if he did move up to 205, let's say Sean beats him and he decides to move up and still fight Pereira, how do you think a Dricus versus Pereira fight would look like at 205? It's kind of interesting, right? Because, you know, Dricus, he's got that great wrestling, he's a great grappler, and he's tenacious, got a good chin, but, you know, he moves into shots, and at 205, it's hard to sort of pick against Alex Pereira. Very fascinating matchup.
Yeah. So comparison-wise, think about what Alex Pereira would do to a guy like Yuri Prochazka. And Yuri's very similar in a way of Dricus in the erratic behavior of the way he throws his punches. I think Yuri is more of a feel fighter where he's not putting predisposed combinations in his head off of these types of reads. He's just kind of throwing. Whereas Dricus is throwing these things, but he's also leaving his hands behind in certain positions, right? Like if he's hitting that switch cross or switch overhand, it's like one hand's in the pocket, the other hand's in the pocket when he's throwing that looping overhand. That's why I think Alex Pereira is elite. I think he sees the holes in the defense. So Dricus kind of hits those a couple times, and Alex catches that timing. That's where his counter striking is so great. I think that's where Dricus will have problems. I don't think you can have that same type of approach as many times as he did against Izzy as you could against Alex Pereira. You know, it's like that, you using the same pickup line at the bar with the same girl over and over and over, and finally she's like, fine, here's my number, you know. But after a while you're like, dude, like this is not gonna work. Like you gotta, but all of a sudden it works. You're like, god damn it.
You wearing moon pants? Because that ass is out of this world. Nah, I'll tell you, bro. We were talking about it as well, where it's like his game plan is amazing. The day that it doesn't work out for him, it's going to be fascinating because you can't really pivot from something like that if you've built your whole career around it. But we'll see what happens, man, because it's working for him now, and he's a great champion. Just quickly, dude, before we wrap up, because I know you got pro practice in a sec. Francis Ngannou, dude, he's coming back. Obviously, he's fighting Renan. How excited are you to see him back? And especially in MMA, right? Like it's a world that you guys know very, very well, a little break from boxing. And I know Francis has been through a really hard time, but is it nice to have something to sort of focus on and, you know, a chance to actually fight in the PFL now, something new and exciting?
Yeah, no, I'm excited for him to come back at any capacity, especially, you know, after the tragic loss of his son, Kobe. So getting him back in the gym and training, that was just the first steps. And right away, I just saw his morale go through the roof, just being around the boys and the energy and the team. The problem was usually the weekends when he was at home. You know, he lives by himself. He doesn't have any family here in town. So he would come over to the house and hang out with my wife and kids and hang out and have barbecues and everything else. So getting him just around the team again, I think really rejuvenated him in a lot of ways and brought interest back into fighting. So for us, it never really was like, oh, let's get him back into MMA or boxing. It was like, let's just let his heart heal and see what he wants to do. And then he took Dewey and I to dinner, and he said, guys, I think I want to take this fight. And what do you guys think? And what does it look like and everything else? So we're all on board. And after that dinner, he just said, this is for Kobe. So I said, all right, man. So we're all focused up, and we know the job, so that's every day I wake up.
Wow.
Yep.
Dude, yeah, my heart breaks, man. And I'm so happy for him to be back in the gym, and at least just being back in the gym and moving around just for your mental health and just get those endorphins up, man. It's so good, and I can't wait for you guys in this journey. Just quickly before I move off Francis, man, what's your reaction to this kind of notion that the UFC is kind of trying to erase his legacy? I mean, we see things here and there. He doesn't really get mentioned, and I mean, Izzy kind of spoke to it a little bit during the media week.
Sure.
How the UFC shouldn't be doing this, should not be trying to erase his legacy. I mean, at the end of the day, we've seen it happen multiple times. Randy Couture is a great example of someone that's happened to. And legacy lives on in fans' minds. But
sure,
a little bit disappointing sometimes when you see this kind of stuff happen as well.
It just doesn't make any sense. I think it's like if you had this breakup, right? But you still learn something, or you still gain something from that relationship. And I think it takes somebody of Izzy's stature and nobility, of like, he cares so much about Francis that he has a platform and he speaks up about it. And good on Izzy for seeing these injustices and speaking up on it. It's just silly. It just actually, I think it brings more light and more negative connotation to the situation. Had they just been like, oh, hey man, he was a great champion for us while he was here. You don't have to promote the guy, but when you're doing a stat that say the first Cameroonian fighter in UFC history, you're like, wait a minute, like you had a couple guys that were in there, So it is what it is, man. It's their promotion, it's their business, what they decide to do. I just will never really understand the purpose or reason why behind it.
Can you imagine the guy that had to put this stat up? It's like someone in the control room being like, "Do it." He's like, "I don't think I should be. Do it right now. You're out of here." No, it's ridiculous. And again, his legacy lives beyond the UFC. We can't wait to see the return, dude. As we wrap up, because I know you got pro practice, you got your own pod, dude. You got your own pod. Congratulations! I've been watching it and I've been loving it. You guys do such a good job. But just for the people out there who haven't had a chance to check it out, what's coming up? How can they get involved? Where should they be watching it? Is it primarily YouTube that you want them, or you want the audio? Hit us up with all the latest.
Yeah, whatever. But we'll probably get canceled after this week because we dropped Sean Strickland episode that airs tomorrow. So we're probably
yes.
Yeah, we had to send. I was like, bro, I don't know about half the shit that he says here. So send it off to our lawyers and whatever else. Yeah, so it's going to be a good one. I got Strickland coming on this Tuesday. We'll have Aljamain for the following if we're not canceled by then. But it's the Versus Us podcast with Eric Nicksick. You can check us out on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts.
Yeah, follow the guys on Instagram. They do great social clips as well. You guys like to burn the boats or get Sean Strickland on us? Definitely burning those boats. The boats are gone, brother. But one of the best to ever do it. One of the nicest guys in the game. Absolute legend, Eric Nicksick. Thank you so much, man. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure, brother. Always great
you doing this with me.
Anytime. Here, say hi to Danny again. He's over here hiding.
Hey, Danny. Hey, Danny. Have a great practice, man. Danny. We'll have to get you on the show sometime.
Yeah, I'll hook you up, bro. All right, brother.
Take
I'll
care.
talk to you soon.